So this is the 2023 Orbea Rise. Some real good refinements over the previous generation. But first off, before we talk about this specific bike, just want to give you a catch up on the lightweight category, which has been really interesting to see grow and develop over the past few years. If we rewind 3 years ago, almost to the day, Specialized launched their Levo SL. And I think that got people really interested in a lightweight electric mountain bike. It offered a 35 Newton meters of torque motor in a package that was really lightweight, around 17.5 kilos, and it gave people a bit more of a traditional riding experience because of the weight, but it gave a little bit of motor assistance, 35 Newton meters of assistance. Now, at the time, I think a lot of people were really interested in buying their first electric mountain bike, and they really wanted a full power e-bike. But I think the Levo SL really primed the lightweight market. It got people thinking about these lightweight electric mountain bikes. And then later on in 2020, Orbea announced the original Rise. And like the Levo SL, that was a super light e-bike, around 16.5, 17 kilos, with the Shimano EP8 motor that had a custom tune that Orbea and Shimano collaborated on to bring a lower powered version of that same EP8 motor that normally runs at 85 Newton meters of torque to 60 Newton meters of torque. And instead of offering something like 35 Newton meters like Specialized did with the Levo SL, it offered 60 Newton meters of torque, so almost double what you got from the Specialized Levo SL. So I think the market had already been primed and thinking about lightweight electric mountain bikes, but didn't want a really low-powered electric mountain bike like the SL series. But 60 Newton meters was a really compelling option. So you got a lightweight handling bike, a more traditional feeling experience like you would associate with a regular pedal bike, but you have up to 60 Newton meters of torque on tap. So I think Orbea's timing of the release of the original Rise in 2020 was awesome. And the spec and the power and all of that stuff, the look of the bike, the price, the customization options that you could do through their website, everything worked together to create a really compelling electric mountain bike. And it's no wonder that we see so many people buying the Orbea Rise. Worldwide, it's such a popular electric mountain bike. So in this video, we'll take a look at some of the key features of this new 2023 Orbea Rise. And really, there's 3 key things that I'll share with you. So first off, it's lighter than ever. In fact, the lightest build is only 15.9 kilos. Don't forget, it's still got that 60 Newton meter torque motor, so there's no weak motor here. It's a pretty punchy Shimano motor, a new Shimano motor. I'll come on to that in a moment. But 15.9 kilos in the lightest build. Now, second, there's more battery options. Originally, when the Rise came out, it came with a 360 watt-hour internal battery. So that was for the carbon bike. It came out originally with a 360 watt internal battery. Now, since then, Orbea released an aluminium Rise, which was cheaper and had a bigger battery option. So I suspect that loads of people went for that one because it had a bigger battery. And the weight was, yeah, it was a little bit heavier, but I think the real compelling sell for that bike was the fact that it came with a 540 watt-hour battery. Yes, you had to go for an aluminium build because you couldn't get the carbon version with the bigger battery, but you got a 540 battery. And with both of them, there was a range extender available as well. But I do think that people really want the bigger internal battery and not have to worry about range extenders. So the aluminium Rise became a really popular seller, and I think the carbon Rise took a little bit of a back seat because it had that smaller battery. But with the 2023 Rise, you can choose either the 360 watt or the 540 watt. So you've got both battery configurations available for this Rise. So if you want the super light build, you can go for a 360 watt-hour. But if you want something that's going to give you a little bit more range, at around a kilo heavier, you go for the 540 watt-hour battery in the carbon build. Now, the Rise does have a non-removable battery, so it's not one that you can just unbolt and swap out. They can be taken out at the dealers. The motor needs to be dropped down, so it's not really something you can do at home. So when you're buying the bike, it's something to think about because you can't really just swap them on the fly. And third, we've got a brand new Shimano motor called the EP801, which is a newer version of the EP8. So this has got some really interesting things that we'll cover. Firstly, there's much neater integration. If you watched my previous Orbea Rise video, one of my things that I just didn't quite like is that junction box at the top. It looked a little bit out of place on a bike that had such a nice cohesive design and really kind of well integrated everywhere else. But there was this kind of clunky junction box sticking out the front, and that looked like a bit of a hack job, to be honest with you. It was a kind of LED box on the front, and I don't know, it kind of just spoiled the aesthetic of the bike. That's gone completely. So with the EP801, there's a new controller, and Orbea have done a fantastic job with their new handlebars because there's a little hole in there and the wire for it goes inside the bar. So when you're sat on the bike or you're looking at the bike from the side or the front, everything looks well clean, really well integrated. There's hardly any wires at all, and that cable is hidden in the bar. So we've lost that hacked on kind of junction box look, and it looks way more finished and way more refined. Now, Orbea have worked with Shimano on the previous motor and this motor to create their custom tune, which means the torque maxes out at 60 Newton meters, and it kind of adapts to your cadence. The more cadence you put in, the more power you get out of the motor. The full power motor is 85 Newton meters. The RS version is 60 Newton meters. The hardware is identical, it's all in that software tune. But what's really interesting about this Shimano EP801 motor is I think it's actually quieter than the previous generation. So the EP8 motor had a couple of things that I think people didn't like so much. First off was the noise. It made a real rattle noise when you picked it up and kind of dropped it. You could hear it. It's the gearing backlash inside. Effectively, it's the cogs kind of meshing and hitting each other. It's just inherent in the design. There's no performance issues with it. It just audibly didn't sound great. And you could notice it when you're on rocky terrain, going over roots, bumps. You just got that kind of clatter from the motor. And I could tell straight away with the Shimano EP8 motor. I'd just pick up the back of the bike, drop the back wheel, and listen for that rattle. Some bikes' rear suspension design made it sound worse as well. This is super interesting because when I do that same drop test, and when I move the chainring around, that is way more damped. And it sounds to me, just in my standard test in the studio, much, much quieter. So Shimano have definitely done something with the hardware to stop that clatter. Now the real test will be when it's out on the trails and I'm riding it, and I'm gonna do some tests and listen for that sound, because it was really annoying to me because the Shimano EP8 motor is really quiet going uphill under load, but it rattled loads going downhill. So my initial tests show that that clatter is massively reduced. I'm really looking forward to trying it out on the trail. And another thing with the EP8 motor, the full power version, is it was a little bit outgunned compared to some of the others on the market. Now the peak watts for the Shimano EP8 motor were 500. Interestingly, when you look at the website for this, the stats say the peak watts have moved from 500 to 600. So that's a 20% power increase, which is pretty significant. Now, I'm not quite sure we'll get all of that power from the RS tune because it's specifically tuned for this Orbea Rise, 60 Newton meters, not the full 85. So I'm not sure if we'll get that full 600 watts, but nonetheless, it's interesting to see that Shimano have taken on the feedback from the noise and the power on the EP801 motor. So I'm really interested in trying the EP801 motor in the full power e-bikes, as well as this RS tuned motor on the Orbea Rise. So the Shimano EP801 motor, I think, is going to be less noisy. I think is going to feel a little bit punchy. And on a bike like this that weighs 17.5 kilos with a Fox 36, a Float X factory rear shock, aluminium wheels, these aren't even carbon wheels, I think that's going to be a pretty decent force to be reckoned with in this lightweight segment. So Orbea have actually shaved some weight off the battery. They're quoting the battery at 1,898 grams, which offers a really good energy density. It's one of the highest on the market in terms of the weight of the battery and the actual capacity that you're getting in that battery. They've reduced the size of it slightly. Orbea have redesigned the connector, which means the battery can sit a little bit lower in the frame for better weight distribution as well. So yeah, they've shaved 300 grams off that older battery, and it's the same capacity. And you can pair it up with a range extender as well. So you could get this bike with a 360 watt battery and a 250 watt hour range extender, or you could get the bigger 540 watt hour battery and a 250 range extender, which gives you nearly 800 watt hours, which is loads of battery, especially for a lighter tuned bike like this. Now Orbea quote in their range tests that in full boost mode that you can get around 2,400 meters of climbing, which is pretty incredible. Now, I don't like these range tests so much because it depends on so many factors like terrain, rider weight, weather, trail conditions, but they're quoting that 2,400 meters in full boost. That's pretty cool. That's way more than I normally get. I normally get around 1,500 meters of elevation. Now, part of that might be down to the fact that it's now using 21700 cells, the newest generation of cells, which may be a little bit more energy efficient compared to the prior version. So the frame has been redesigned slightly. The geometry is the same, but they've made some refinements to it. So the down tube looks like it's a little bit thinner to me. The frame is actually lighter than before. It's now 2.2 kilos in size medium. And Orbea is saying that this has a stiffer front triangle. They're not quoting exact figures, but they're saying it's stiffer. Now, the suspension linkage is also brand new. It's lighter and stiffer than before, and it looks a bit neater as well. And I like this little tool that's stashed away in there as well. It's just really neat and easy to access if you need to adjust something on the fly when you're out on the trail. And the bar and the cockpit looks really clean. This has got the new Orbea carbon bars. And like I previously mentioned, the wiring for the remote is already inserted in the bars, so it runs internally. Looks really clean. And this little stem mount here is a Garmin mount, so if you're using a Garmin computer or a light, you don't need to find any additional hardware. The Garmin will just go on there. So for 2023, the lightweight e-bike market is really interesting. We've got all the different brands with different systems bringing their product to market. So on the motor side, we've got TQ with their 50 Newton meter motor, Fazua with their 60 Newton meter motor, and Orbea with the EP801 with a 60 Newton meter tune. And as I previously talked about, the Specialized SL came out 3 years ago. So surely we've got to see something from them real soon. But that was a quick introduction to the new 2023 rides. Let me know any questions that you've got down below. I'll be doing a test of this bike soon, so subscribe if you want to be the first to see that. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you soon.